Sonic the Hedgehog is one of the longest-lasting video game franchises around. He's been speeding through rolling hills since 1991 and still holds as my favorite video game franchise. I've played almost all the Sonic games too, but to really understand the character and franchise, we have to go back to where it all started, Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Mega Drive. I'll be playing the version of the game available on the Sega Genesis Classic for this review, so that means I have save states but not much else in terms of enhancements. I want to experience this game in its original form, but if you guys want to play it, I do recommend the Christian Whitehead version available on Android and iOS. That version includes Tails and Knuckles as playable characters and the spin dash and just other quality of life improvements which make it an ideal port of the game. Without further ado, let's get into it. Sonic was created in a character contest within Sega to compete with Nintendo's Mario. The story's been told so many times, so I won't go too in-depth, but basically Sonic was the mascot created to rival Mario, and rival Mario he did. Before the iconic Mega Drive was even out, Sega had an 8-bit console called the Master System. It did fairly well in some territories, but the NES was the hot toy in the US and Japan. Sega's previous mascot, Alex Kidd, was a far cry from the quality seen in Super Mario Bros. I should know, I've played the Genesis game. Even with a traditional platformer mascot, Sega wasn't getting the attention they wanted, so they made Sonic. The marketing campaign for the game before and when it was new was aggressive, as was the rest of Sega's advertising. They had the Super Mario World Sonic comparison commercial, the Humans Against Genesis commercial, my personal favorite, and of course, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. This boosted the game's sales and popularity, along with Tom Kalinske convincing Sega of Japan to put Sonic as the pack-in game, replacing the competent but bland Altered Beast. This is what happened before the game launched, but what about the game itself? That's what we'll be looking at next.
Danita Stokes, president of HAG.
It's bad enough that Sega Genesis has the most 16-bit games, but this new Sonic the Hedgehog, oh, he really does my doilies. They say he's incredibly fast. Well, what's the hurry, mister? And about his attitude. Smarty pants! Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
Sonic the Hedgehog happens on an island called South Island. The evil Dr. Ivo Robotnik has turned animals into robots, and it's up to Sonic to defeat him, collect the 6 Chaos Emeralds, and save South Island from an industrial revolution and pollution that will most certainly kill everything. The plot of Sonic 1 is pretty standard for 8 and 16-bit platformers. Evil guy does evil thing, good guy goes to stop him. What's more interesting is the world of the game. South Island is a vibrant place, from Green Hill to Spring Yard and beyond. Every zone offers a different color palette and atmosphere, something we'll get more in depth when we talk about the levels individually. A recurring theme throughout the levels is a shift from natural to mechanical by the end of the game. The level order on the level select menu shows the order the game was supposed to go in, with Labyrinth Zone after Green Hill, but Labyrinth was too hard to be the second level of the game. Good on them for changing the order, or I would have never gotten as far as I did. By the time you reach Scrap Rain and Final Zone, the world is fully mechanical. The way I see it, Green Hill is on the outer fringes of the island, and going inwards we see all the other levels as Sonic takes the offensive towards Robotnik's base. Compared to other platformers of the era, whose worlds felt bubbly and cartoonish, Sonic 1 had the perfect mix of bright and drab. Now let's do a walkthrough of the game, zone by zone, and see how good it really is. Starting off with the iconic and done-to-death Green Hill Zone. This level has been put into almost all of the more recent Sonic games, including Mania, Forces, Generations, and even Lost World in theme. Though playing through the original, I see how this got people hooked on Sonic gameplay back in the 90s. Playing through Green Hill with no spin dash made me appreciate how much faster the game is with the spin dash and drop dash included, as it was with the Christian Whitehead version. I had my first death in Green Hill Zone Act 2 in the part with the vertically moving platforms. The platforms are only semi-solid here, while in Mania they are fully solid, so this tripped me up a bit. Green Hill Act 3 felt unneeded. I don't know if that's just because this is the only classic 2D game with 3 acts instead of 2 or what, because I would have been completely fine if the boss had just been stuck at the end of Act 2. I feel this may become a problem later on. Marble Zone. This level has become infamous for the start of a trend with the classic games. At some point in it, the levels become slow and not good Sonic levels. Not to say they aren't good game levels, they're just not good Sonic levels. Sonic 1 is the worst offender at this, with the second zone being where the slowdown occurs. Marble Zone is a slow waiting game with like one fast part in the second act. The whole zone is filled with lava, and this is what causes the waiting games. Slow block pushing, close corners on crushing pillars, and an overlong third act are most of my problems with the zone. The boss is fine, I didn't have any issues with it. Spring Yard is a good mix of Green Hill speed and Marble Zone slowdown. It picks up the pace but slows down to let you breathe, but not to an overlong length. The high point of the zone, in my opinion, was in Act 3, where you come out of this really long slow part and just drop into a tall half-pipe. It was the most exhilarating part of the zone and kept me going all the way to the boss. The shifting platforms near the end was a nice change of pace from the block riding of Acts 1, 2, and most of 3. The boss is once again fine, though really quite simple to beat. The difficulty does ramp up a bit, and I feel like this is the start of the proper difficulty slope up. You all probably know what I think about Labyrinth Zone. I thought other YouTubers were exaggerating how bad this zone is. No, I barely scraped by Acts 1 and 2 but couldn't get past Act 3 because of that water slide. Not to mention what I've seen of the boss, which just looks like cheap tricks all around. The first 2 acts threw a lot of those at you, some of which I knew to avoid from watching others play, but the levels just get so repetitive. The water physics are quite bad compared to what I'm used to in even Sonic 2 and Mania. Then we get to the looping beginning of Act 3. I've been sitting here for 5 minutes to get past this one part, and I'm just sitting here thinking how this is supposed to be a level in a competent game. Jumping out of the slide feels as bad as the rivers in the jungle portion of the Mystic Ruins. Let's move on, I'll just be skipping straight to Starlight with the level select now. Starlight Zone was a breath of fresh air. This zone actually had some speed to it, no matter how hard it was. It felt like this was the speed that the rest of the game is supposed to be like. There's the only other loop besides Green Hill here. This is the zone I realized how low the speed cap was. I would hit a red spring and go flying, only to slow up a moment later. The boss was my favorite in the game, and it brought some unique ideas to the table. Next up is Scrap Brain, the last proper zone. The first 2 acts are good enough, leaving me with a sense of accomplishment having beat them. They really added some real meat and challenge to them, and they pulled no punches. There were even some complicated kind of puzzle parts. I was very impressed with having this being Sonic 1. But then Act 3 came. I fell down that pit, and I died inside. I guess the team was short on time, so what better way to make a final level than to reuse assets? And what better zone than a Labyrinth? Great job, guys. We made a great level. Purple water, what an improvement. Gray backgrounds, amazing. And the final zone. More specifically, the final boss. It's okay, they improved it in Mania, but here, it was fine. Just a little finicky around the sides of the pillars. And last but not least, the special stages. These drug trips are very hard to get through, but at least they haven't been as overused for nostalgia as the Hat Pipe. Looking at you, Sonic, for episode 1, we'll get to it eventually. music of Sonic 1 is very good. All the tracks are catchy, Green Hill is iconic as ever, Marble Zone is gonna get stuck in your head, Spring Yard fits the tone of the zone, Labyrinth has one of the best tracks ironically, Starlight's music doesn't fit at all though. It's really upbeat for what feels like it should be a desolate industrial city. This is better portrayed in Scrap Brain. I thought that track was great. The boss tracks are always a joy to hear, and the special stage music is fitting for what's supposed to be some sort of magical land in the sky or gravity-less. You know, it's kind of weird, but it's all decently good music. Definitely not the best of the series, not even the classic games, but still a great soundtrack all around, something I would put in a game music playlist on Spotify or something if I ever wanted to do that, which I don't. Sonic the Hedgehog is a very hard game to judge. On one hand, you have a lot of potential and quality which would be expanded in the future. On the other, I see a game which could be argued as more bad than good in a lot of respects. I think this game really has its merits. As the first true rival to Mario and Nintendo, Sonic and Sega both took the Genesis to new heights. The game brought cool mechanics and things that would only be expanded upon on our next topic, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.